Fans, we are back live with another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Gentleman Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling. And we're pleased tonight to have on a performer who made her mark in professional wrestling in a very memorable landmark series and has gone on to do a number of other endeavors that we're going to get to. But most fans of this channel probably know her from the Gorgeous Ladies Glow promotion, and she is Tiffany Mellon. We will definitely hit your Glow time and answer some fan questions that have come in. But before we get to that, as per the tradition, I have to throw to Mr. Cheap Heat himself, the man, the founder, the godfather, the inspirational leader of Cheap Heat Productions, Mr. Morris Shortle.
Well, thank you very much, Jack, for the great introduction. And thanks to Tiffany. Really looking forward to the podcast today and really getting stuck into it now.
It's my pleasure.
So, Tiffany, I wanted to ask to start off with, when was the idea of Glow first pitched to you? What were you doing I know you did some modeling work early on. What were you doing in the industry, and were you a fan of the professional wrestling business per se before Glow?
Actually, I was not. I was not a fan of wrestling. What happened was I had two roommates. We were living in Orange County, California, and I was an actress. I'd only been in LA for about 9 months. I moved from the San Francisco Bay Area, where I was a performer at the Mitchell Brothers O'Farrell Theater in San Francisco, world famous. And so I had been doing some acting, and I was at my agent's office one day, and there was a notice on the wall behind him that said Glow auditions. And so I expressed to him that I wanted to audition for the show. And he said, "You want to try out for that?" Because he just didn't see me as like the type that would, and he was right. I really wasn't. I had recently become a fan of the show because my two roommates were lesbians. They were a couple. And the one that was more masculine of the two was the one who was really into the show because of all the crotch shots and the possibility of boobs falling out. And so one morning she knocked on my door and said, Sandra, which is my real name, she said, "You got to come downstairs and watch this crazy show." And it's these lady wrestlers, and they do these raps and these comedy sketches, and they wear these really tight, sexy outfits and this crazy makeup, and there's all these crotch shots. And at the time I was involved with women myself. So, I found that attractive. So we would watch the show together. So when I saw the notice on the wall behind my agent, I was like, "Oh, damn. Yeah, that's something I want to do." And he just said, "That's so not you." So he set me up with Matt Simber, who was the director of Glow. And I met Matt at his tennis club in West LA. And we had a great meeting. And he immediately cast me on the show. And like all of the other girls, I wanted to be a bad girl. A heel. But no, I had no wrestling experience. I wasn't even very athletic at all. I hated PE in high school. I practically flunked it.
Sorry, go ahead, Morris.
I'm just wondering, Tiffany, because that was going to be in a TV kind of environment, did you have much TV work done before that opportunity came about?
Not a whole lot. I was getting mostly bit parts in B movies and guest appearances on TV shows. I had been on like Tales from the Crypt and My Two Dads and in a slew of B movies. So my experience was limited. When I was growing up, I was always doing school plays, and I usually was the lead in the school plays. So it had been kind of a lifelong thing for me wanting to perform. But I got most of my acting work after I left Glow.
What you said you were a fan of the show, and so you knew about what Glow was about, but for any of the prep for your role, and you said you weren't a fan of the mainstream wrestling business at the time. Did you take any of the preparation for the role by looking at standard professional wrestling at the time, be it in the WWF or other promotions? Did you try to get into a sense of what it was like to be a female wrestler at that time, or was it just something totally off the beaten path that you were going for?
Yeah, it was just something totally off the beaten path. The character Tiffany Mellon, which is very close to my nom de porn, I just kind of pulled it out of my ass, to tell you the truth. I didn't even know what a Park Avenue socialite was at the time. Now, I knew Tina and Ashley's character. I knew what they represented, so I knew what direction to go in. But Matt tried to explain to Roxy and I what a New York socialite was. Now, I don't know if she got it. I certainly didn't understand. I don't think at that point I'd ever even been to New York City. So trying to explain to me what a New York socialite was quite a feat. So I pretty much just pulled the character out of my ass and injected that laugh in there of my own accord. That was kind of my own little thing, and it worked. Because I did understand that Tiffany was a spoiled little rich girl, that she was a daddy's girl. So that much I understood.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever, when you were, and we'll talk into some more of the fine detail about the process for training, et cetera, but I know at the time in the wrestling magazines, Glow was somewhat of a controversial or polarizing entity from, real quote unquote female wrestlers. There were a couple of articles that I recall in PWI talking about how, it was basically a blight on the female wrestling profession. Did you ever encounter any negative feedback from female wrestlers? And how did you handle it?
Yes. Well, not so much from the female wrestlers, more from the male wrestlers than the female wrestlers. We didn't have a lot of interaction with other female wrestlers because there wasn't really a lot of them. Yeah, there really wasn't a lot of them at the time. So, but we did. I remember running into Hulk Hogan at Gold's Gym in Las Vegas while we were shooting Glow, and he really snubbed us. He wasn't very friendly.
Did you try and communicate with him and he just blew you off?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he was too good to talk to us.
Did you get the impression that that's because you were from Glow?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack kind of touched on it there a little bit, Tiffany, with the kind of training that maybe you went through to kind of get you ready for the TV show. Like, what did that entail?
Well, we went through, I can't recall because it was so long ago, but I think it was about 3 months of intense training with Mondo Guerrero every single day, 5 to 6 days a week, all day long, from very early in the morning until the evening. And then we had a break for dinner. And then we had to all meet up at the Glow House and rehearse our raps, write our raps, rehearse our comedy sketches. So they were very, very long days. And the warehouse where we shot Glow and where we trained and did our rehearsals was not air conditioned or heated. So during the winter we were freezing cold, and during the summer we were baking like it was really hot. It was very filthy. It was like an old department store that had been shut down for a while, and the restrooms were disgusting. It definitely wasn't luxury accommodations. And we were also trained by Nunochka. Nunochka helped train us, as well as Mondo Guerrero.
In terms of pro wrestling training, especially back in that time frame, we hear a lot about, how punishing physically it is, and usually, those that would go through a long-term training process would, be the folks that were, involved in athletics beforehand or something like that, be it amateur wrestling or football, something else. how did you you just described a very intense, rigorous schedule. How did you cope with those physical demands for that position, given the fact that you stated you weren't an organized sports person before?
Well, I was only 22 at the time. So I think that, a 22-year-old body can just take a beating. I mean, I was working out. I was going to a gym. So I was getting some exercise and working out. So it's not like I was a complete stranger to physical exercise, but I certainly wasn't involved in any kind of organized sports. Never. Well, I played basketball in grade school. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned there practicing the raps and practicing various parts. Did you get much input yourself, or was it very much all directed and choreographed to a T? Like you'd see now wrestling these days, they say everything is from top to bottom on a script. But for you guys back then, was there a bit of flexibility to put your own input into things?
Well, we wrote our own raps, if that's what you're asking. All the girls wrote their own raps. Now, I wrote a lot of raps for the other girls, the ones that were struggling. So some of us would contribute to the other girls that were having a hard time. And they just kind of flowed with me. Like I had no problem writing them. So I would write raps for the other girls. We wrote our own matches, and then we had to practice them all week. And then I think we would rehearse 4 days a week. On Friday, we had to perform the matches for Matt Simber. And then he had to approve or, disapprove of certain parts of the match, or he had to give the green light. And then recording, taping day was Saturday. And then we had Sunday off.
Wow. Now, when you got to the stage, especially initially when you had to actually do the match, did you find that to be daunting because we hear this all the time, everything nowadays is overly choreographed. And I would imagine that it's not like other wrestling at the time where you can call it in the ring, so to speak. Did you find that daunting to pick that up and put it all together?
No. I think our training helped us through that. It helped us to learn how to do that. Sometimes you would forget what move was next. You have to get your partner on the mat and whisper in their ear and say, "What's next?" And they would tell you, or get them in the turnbuckle and say, "I forgot the next move." And then you would just hope that they remembered. And you could actually see me doing that a few times, or they would ask me. But I've actually seen a few times watching my own matches where I'm like, right there, see that right there? That's me, like holding her on the mat and whispering in her ear, "What's next? I forgot."
Yeah, that happens in wrestling, I think, to this day.
Now, when I went to Japan, and did some wrestling with All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling, and that is not scripted at all. That you're calling it in the ring, and those girls are brutal. They are really brutal.
What if did you, as a result of either working Japan or Glow, did you get any sort of like major injuries that set you back, or were you able to?
Very lucky. I never had a major injury. Several of the girls did, and had to leave the show, as you guys probably know.
Yeah.
The next one there's a fan question saying, could you please discuss the atmosphere of the Glow tapings at the Riviera Hotel and Casino in Vegas?
Well, I was season 3 and 4, and by the time they got to season 3 and 4, we weren't taping at the Riviera anymore. We were taping at an old. It wasn't really a department store. It was like a warehouse store, like a former Sam's Club or something like that, down the street from the Riviera. So I don't know what happened that we weren't able to tape at the Riviera anymore. I guess maybe the girls made too many problems or something when they were there the first 2 seasons, but I guess they kicked them out. And so we had to tape down the street at this really horrible location. And like I was describing to you before, it was filthy, it was dusty, it wasn't temperature controlled, it wasn't comfortable, and it was kind of a miserable place to tape the show, to tell you the truth.
Was that a major juxtaposition from the other cast members that had taped at the Riviera? in terms of, aside from the physical location, we've heard that the Riviera at the time, they were really welcoming and interested in the taping, and then you moved to a warehouse. What did the other cast members that came over from that era, did they mention the difference?
Yeah, they certainly did, and all of us were jealous because it sounds like where they got to tape before in one of the showrooms was much preferable to the location that we had. But they were staying in hotel rooms at the Riviera and eating at the buffet, whereas Glow put us up in apartments. So they weren't very fancy apartments, and I could tell you some crazy stories about things that happened at those apartments while we were there.
Go ahead.
But also, I'll finish my thought. But it was nice because, like they couldn't cook in their hotel rooms. We had full apartments with kitchens and laundry and a pool and everything. So they weren't luxury accommodations, but they said that like they much preferred living in the apartments to living at the Riviera. Yeah. So when we first went out to Vegas, all of us girls, and they put us up in these apartments over on, I think it was on Bruce Street, which was practically right next door to where we shot the show. We had been there no longer than maybe a couple days, and there was a murder in one of the apartments. I guess somebody stabbed their roommate to death, and the police left the apartment, I guess because it was a crime scene, exactly the way that it was, and they didn't draw the curtains. So we were able to walk up to the apartment and look in, and there was just blood everywhere. There was blood on the window, blood on the curtains, blood on the floor. I mean, you could definitely tell that somebody had suffered miserably, and there was blood everywhere. And that was like our welcome to Vegas,
Really?
Yeah, right at the same apartments where we lived. It was crazy. I'm sure a lot of the other girls will remember that.
That's got to be disconcerting. Morris, can you pose this fan question that we got to?
Yes. Ask Tiffany, is she any plans to do solo taboo videos? Her taboo movie, Love Hate, is best. I want to see much more films from her.
Oh, I know who this is sending this question in. I know exactly who this is.
Renzo is his name there anyway. I'm assuming that's not his real name.
Yeah, no, he's a huge fan of my taboo movie, Love Hate. And honestly, before he sent it to me on Twitter, I'd never seen it before. It's extremely hot. And the answer to that question is yes, I do. My boyfriend is 23 and I'm 58, and we role play mother-son all the time. It totally turns him on, and I enjoy it myself. So yes, I will be doing taboo.
On to one personality that I touched on earlier about some of the negative feedback that Glow got as an entity during its run from mainline wrestling people. Jim Cornette, who did commentary for Glow, I'm sure you remember him, described the promotion as a clown show. Did you happen to meet Jim Cornette? Are you familiar with his remarks?
The name doesn't ring a bell. Maybe if I saw the face, I would recognize him, but I don't recognize the name, no.
Okay. He's been very outspoken about
everything.
Everything. Yeah. But especially about he didn't have a very good time with Glow. Can you speak to not maybe Mr. Cornette, but the folks involved in TV production, commentary when you were there, announcers, etc., and the experience that they had, to your understanding? Was it a pleasant one, I guess?
Well, I mean, the only one I can really talk about is Johnny C, because is that what you're talking about? Because David McLean was gone by the time I got there. I actually have never met David McLean.
Yes. When you were there, your experience with the TV production folks, there's a lot of urban mythology around basically it was an extremely chaotic production.
I never really saw that part. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of behind the scenes drama in a lot of ways. I could go on and on and on about the drama. the lesbian relationships, the attempted suicides, the relationships between Matt and some of the girls, and the drugs. And there was a lot of crazy stuff happening. But as far as like the production stuff, I don't think I really saw any of that, unless that's what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, kind of the relationship behind the scenes between, the performers, and then, of course, during that time frame, it was the 80s, the wild party atmosphere of.
Yeah, it wasn't really a wild party atmosphere at all. I mean, everybody was just there to do their job. But on the weekends, you got a bunch of young women all together in Vegas. And of course, there's going to be craziness. And there was.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's just symbolic of the era, though. And like you hear all the stories about Hollywood and about people in bands, rock stars, everything. It all kind of aligns anyway. The 80s seems like a good time. I was only born in 88, so I really missed out, I think.
You really were? You were born in 88?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Gosh, I graduated high school in 84 and college in 86. So you weren't even born yet. Honestly, guys, when I was in Glow, I was involved in a relationship with Dementia, Nancy Daly. So she and I kind of kept to ourselves. We lived together, and we didn't really partake in a lot of the craziness. We heard about it, but we were just kind of off by ourselves. We would go to the movies on the weekends and go out to eat and go grocery shopping and cook. And, we were a couple, so we didn't really go to like the parties or get involved in any of the madness. Certainly observed some of it at some points, but yeah. And this is something that I'm just talking about recently. I've protected Nancy's privacy for many, many years, but apparently she is talking about it now, so I feel free to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. What would you, in terms of larger cast, was it a harmonious group, generally speaking, or were there some real actual tensions and, as we say in the business, heat amongst the ladies?
Well, there were some tensions, but honestly, there's a lot more tension now that the girls are all grown than there was when we were in Glow, and it's really shocking. And I'm sure you guys are aware of some of the drama going on between some of the girls. I haven't really had anything to do with Glow in a very long time because, I've had other things going on with adult films. And then I had my reality TV show, Wife, Mom, Bounty Hunter. So, for most of the girls, Glow is the only thing they've ever done. But for me, it's only one thing. I've done other things. So I haven't really had a lot to do with Glow. I haven't been a part of the reunions and the cruises and all the events and all that because I have other things going on. But I do hear through the grapevine, because I'm still, I've always been friends with Hollywood. I've always been friends with Godiva. I've always been friends with Roxy. So I do hear about the drama going on. And I just can't believe that these grown women in their 50s and 60s have more drama going on now than they did when they were actually on the show. It's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
We can tell you, myself and Jack, from dealing with the male talents as well, that no matter how old these guys are, they're still it's not just a woman problem. It's that the guys are still the same as well as they get older. Guys like Ric Flair, people like that. Yeah.
See, I'm not like that. I've never been like that. I just don't comprehend it whatsoever. I love everybody. Everybody's my friend. They always have been. I have no enemies except for maybe my ex-husband, who's not too happy with me right now. But yeah, I don't get that. It's shocking, especially at their age.
Yeah, we're gonna move away from wrestling now shortly, but I think there's a couple of questions there near the end that maybe just need addressing. Like the first one is, what is your favorite moment from Glow? And then after that, why did you ultimately leave? Because there's all sorts of rumors and things online. Maybe you can clear it up in person today.
My favorite moment in Glow was one of my 2 matches with Ninochka, where she does a superplex with me from the second rope. And I really like that because when we did it in rehearsal, Matt Simber told us, don't you dare do that. Take that out of the match. He said it was unsafe and he didn't want us to do it. So when it came time to tape and the cameras were rolling, she got me up in this, on the second rope in the turnbuckle, and she whispered in my ear, she goes, "You want to go for it?" I said, "Go for it." What's he gonna do, right? Cameras are rolling. So we did it. And it turned out great. It went off without a hitch and it looked great. And I don't remember what Matt said afterwards. He was a little mad, but I think he was really happy that we pulled it off.
And the other question, and just one more after that, is why did you do the one season and leave?
I did 2 seasons.
Okay, 2 seasons. A relatively
Yes, I did season 3 and season 4, huh? And Glow actually fired Nancy and I because we were involved in a lesbian relationship. And they did us really dirty. I've said this on other podcasts before, but I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard it. They waited until we were on tour. It was January, the dead of winter. I think we were at Trump Castle in Atlantic City. And we had been out doing television and radio promo interviews. Nancy and I got back to the hotel and our bags were out in front of the hotel. Security would not let us in. Johnny C came to the door with envelopes for both of us with our letters of termination and our final paychecks. They would not let us back in the hotel. We were across the country. They did not provide us with airline tickets to get back to California and pretty much said, "See ya, figure out your own way home." That's what they did to us. They did us really dirty.
Yeah, that wouldn't fly in this day and age for sure.
No.
What did you think of the Netflix Glow series? If you checked it out,
I've never watched it.
any reason?
No desire.
Mm.
There's no desire to watch it whatsoever. It's there'll never be another Glow, and why would I want to watch it? I just don't have any desire. I'm not much of a TV watcher to begin with, but it just doesn't interest me.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the timeline then between leaving Glow and then going into the adult movie world, how did that transition happen, and what kind of happened in between?
In between, I was doing Foxy Boxing and mud and oil wrestling shows for the Hollywood Tropicana. I was doing their shows on the road, their live shows, like traveling shows. And then doing those shows, I met the father of my first daughter. And so I got pregnant and had my first daughter. And then he and I split up. And that's when I got into adult films.
And how did it come about? How did you get your first kind of role, for instance?
I was stripping at a club in the Valley in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley. And I had become, when I was with my daughter's father, he was a general manager of Deja Vu, one of the Deja Vu gentlemen's clubs. And they had a video store attached to the club. So he would bring home porn movies for us to watch, and then we get all hot and horny and fuck all night long. And so we would watch the movies, and I thought, I could do that, and I could do so much better. Like, these people can't act. The girls don't take care of their bodies. They look like they're shooting up. And I thought I could do that and do it so much better. But of course, he didn't want me to do it. I was involved with him. So when we split up, we were living in Bakersfield at the time, Bakersfield, California. So I moved back to Los Angeles with my daughter and started stripping to support my daughter and myself. And I thought, gosh, I'm not in a relationship anymore. I can pursue this. So I started asking around people at the strip club and kind of on the fringes of that industry if they knew anybody in the porn world. And one guy did, and he introduced me to Reb Sawitz at Pretty Girl International, who was the competitor to Jim South at World Modeling Agency. And so Reb signed me, got me my start. And then about, a year later, I went with Jim South at World Modeling because Reb had some serious physical problems and couldn't give me the attention that I needed. So I went with Jim South.
In terms of, iconic, legendary figures in the adult entertainment business, and really a trailblazer, and I know you're in California, you've no doubt.
No, I'm not in California. I'm in Arizona.
Sorry, but did you do work out of California?
I did, yeah.
Sorry, that's a clarification.
Okay.
You no doubt probably came across Ron Jeremy.
Oh, goodness, yes. Ron and I were the best of friends. I did my very first scene with Ron, and it was during the LA riots, and we shot in Venice in a backyard, and all you could hear were helicopters and SWAT teams and megaphones and guns and yelling and screaming. So my very first movie, which was called Vice Versa, there's no sound because they couldn't record sound because that's all you could hear. So you have music playing over it. And Ron was the first guy I worked with. And he and I were friends off camera. And I actually spoke to him about 2 weeks before he was arrested and went to jail. And he talks about me in his book.
I wanted to ask you about, his sad sort of ending and his legal troubles, because it sounded like, at least allegedly, and of course, it never went to adjudication or anything, that was involved in some illegal activities. Was that your understanding of the man at the end, or do you think?
No, I don't believe that Ron is guilty of any of the things that he was accused of. That's just not the Ron that I know at all. It's just not him. It doesn't fit him. And I was actually just thinking about him today. I think I'm going to text him because I haven't talked to him since he got out of jail. I'm told that he's suffering from dementia. And so I don't know how well my communication with him is going to be received. I don't know if he's even going to remember me. I don't know how severe his dementia is. But I do want to contact him and let him know that I supported him through the whole thing, that anytime I did an interview or a podcast, I always said that I believe that he's innocent and not guilty of any of the things that he was accused of, because that's just not the Ron that I know. I had my own production company when I was in the business, and I produced 8 of my own movies. I hired Ron for several of them. So I know him as a coworker. I know him as an employee. I know him as a friend. And that's just not consistent with the Ron that I know.
Yeah, my understanding was he was declared incompos mentis in terms of standing criminally, and he was in a psychiatric facility. But if he's gotten out, that's perhaps a scoop.
Yeah, I think he has. I've been told by several in the industry that he's out.
Well, certainly in the business, no male performer, anyway, with the possible exception of a couple of names, will ever have the track record of production that he did.
Oh, yes. And I tell everybody this, like the younger people in the industry, I said, believe it or not, Ron Jeremy was a very handsome man when he was younger. He was. Hard to believe looking at him now.
But didn't he get more work? He said the more rotund he got.
I've never heard him say that before.
Yeah, I think in a Playboy interview he said that. But anyway,
he's lived a decent life. He's lived a decent life, I think.
Oh yes, he most certainly has. Very exciting life.
I've interviewed, Tiffany, a lot of people on the podcast from the adult entertainment industry, from trans people to OnlyFans to a wide range of different people. And the one thing, when you got into that industry to where it is now, it's completely different. When you first got in, was it still kind of taboo in the States? Because I'm in Ireland, we're a very religious kind of country, so it was extremely taboo over here. So just kind of wondering what the difference is, we'll say, by going into the industry when you did. And I know you're kind of dipping your feet back into it now. So what's
Yeah.
what's the
Oh,
difference?
I'm not dipping. I'm going in full speed. Well, yeah, it was still kind of taboo back then, and there will always be a taboo surrounding the industry. I think it's much more accepted now than it used to be. I certainly lost a lot of mainstream work because I was either in the industry or had been in the industry. I don't think that's so much the case anymore. But I can't, can't even begin to tell you the countless number of times. Like, I'll give you an example. Chris Carter, the creator of the X-Files, was a huge fan of mine. I mean, he brought me down to the set, well, not the set, but the studio where they produced the X-Files, signed a X-Files #1 comic book for me. I have a picture of it on my Facebook page. He signed it to Tiffany, my muse, my favorite actor or something. Love Chris Carter. Wanted me on the show. David Duchovny wanted me on the show, but the show's sponsors said no because I was a porn star. And this happened a lot. And actually, there are several directors in the adult biz who also worked on the mainstream side, who expressed to me that they would have loved to have cast me in some of their mainstream projects. But even after I left the biz, they said, Tiffany, you're going to have to wait until you've been out of the adult business for a couple of years before I can cast you in any of my mainstream projects. And these are people who worked in our business.
I think
Well,
Ginger
Lord.
Yeah,
Huh?
Ginger Lynn.
For Tracy Lords.
Well, Tracy Lord stuff, you can't find it except for one.
And Ginger Lynn was another one. She went out of the business for a while. She was in, I think, Dawn of the Dead and a few other movies. And then she went back into the business afterwards then.
Yeah, and like when I did my reality show, Wife, Mom, Bounty Hunter, that's the reason I didn't get a second season, because the Silly Gooses didn't do their research before they gave me my own show. Do you know, they didn't even know that I was a former porn star until we were halfway through shooting season 1. And, you think you're investing that much money in a reality TV show, you think you would have done your research on your primary, subject, your star. But that was really stupid on their part, because can you imagine the viewership increase that would have occurred had they had advertised the fact that Sandra Scott, which is how I was known on the show, our bounty hunter, is a former porn star. Oh my God.
Ratings.
Yeah, ratings. That was really stupid. And instead they buried the show. It's not available anywhere. They don't sell the DVDs. They don't stream it. And I actually just messaged their director of post-production, I think this morning, because I used to have all of my episodes of the show on DVD. And when my husband and I split up in June, he threw them all away out of spite. So I don't even have copies of my show anymore. And I'm hoping that the WE channel will replace them. I understand that they probably don't do DVDs anymore, but maybe they'll give me digital copies. But I don't even have access to my reality show anymore.
What was that conversation like then? You said they found out halfway through the series that you are in the adult entertainment industry previously. So what happened? What was the conversation like then between the producers and you?
It was actually with the production company, World of Wonder. The 3 guys that ran World of Wonder are all gay, and they're wonderful guys. They're hilarious. But they told me that we wouldn't be doing season 2 because of me being a former porn star. And I'm like, you guys are just now like finding that out? They're like, no, we knew, but the WE channel didn't know. And so, yes, like the production company knew, but for whatever reason, I guess they didn't think to disclose it to the WE channel when they sold the show to them. So maybe they were hoping they wouldn't. I don't know what the scoop was there, but I remember them telling me that they wouldn't be able to do a season 2, but that they were going to go ahead and finish season 1 and air it. And then they just buried the show, and you can't get it anywhere. Stupid.
Well,
yeah, crazy.
Very stupid.
Yeah. That let's hope that this interview generates some fan demand to stream that product again somewhere, make it available on demand or something.
Yeah,
I'd be
that was
interested in seeing
wonderful.
it. Sorry, did you have a question, Morris?
Yeah, I just want to know then, I was talking about dipping your toes back in, but you were saying you're diving right back into this thing. So what
Oh,
brought you
yes.
what's after bringing you back to this point to want to enter the industry again?
Well, I mean, I didn't leave the industry because I wanted to leave the industry. My father passed away suddenly, and I had to drop everything and fly to Montana and deal with, burying his body and his estate and his property. And it drained me. It was just so much of my time and my energy. And he left me a lot of money. So I was able to take a break and figure out what I was going to do. Like I had to kind of let the dust settle. And during that time, my agent, Sherry Spillane, who is Mickey Spillane's ex-wife, she hooked me up with some people in radio who were looking for an attractive, sexy, witty, bubbly woman who could talk about sex and take questions on the radio, like do a radio call-in show with a sex advice kind of show. And
Like
so,
that much better.
and I auditioned for it and I got the position. So I did that for about 5 years. So I ended up not going back to adult films. And then I got pregnant with my second daughter and I had her in 2000. And then I got married. And my husband and I just divorced in June. We were married for 23 years and he had nothing to do with the industry whatsoever. Totally normal guy, and did not know that side of me whatsoever. He only knew Sandra. He did not know Tiffany whatsoever. So as much as I wanted to go back, I couldn't, because that would mean that I would lose my marriage. But since we divorced in June, I'm like, well, heck, nothing's holding me back now. I'm divorced and I can go back. So here I am.
So
and I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay in the business until they roll me out in a wheelchair. And there's probably a market for that too.
So do you mean that you kept it a secret from your husband, or that he just kind of wanted you to drop that side?
No, he knew everything. I mean, I don't keep any secrets. It's just he didn't want to know that part of me. We didn't talk about it. He never watched any of my movies, had no interest in it, that it never came up. We just kind of avoided it. He had no interest in knowing that side of me whatsoever. So, yeah. So I went 23 years really with Tiffany under a rock.
So there's plenty of steam to let off then and get straight back into this thing. A lot of lost time to catch up on.
Oh, yes. And I'm very much looking forward to it because, I've been saying I was a beast back then. I'm a beast on steroids now.